Hello, I'm the Pedaling Pianist, and today I will be attempting to solve Going Dutch by Michael Lefkowitz. There's a little bit of backstory behind this one. A week ago, I published a video of my solution to Racetrack by Phil the Hat. Brilliant puzzle, and if I say so myself, quite a successful video. So I've since decided I'm going to make a real effort to try and publish a puzzle video every week, every Wednesday at 7 o'clock. That's what I'm sticking to for the foreseeable future. Now, that foreseeable future might be a matter of years, it might honestly be a matter of weeks or anything in between. We'll see. Read about that on my Patreon page if you like. There's a certain life update that might make things a little bit difficult. But anyway, for now, weekly uploads seems like a manageable target. But yes, I started recording a video to be my second such upload, which was another Michael Lefkowitz puzzle, and let's just say it was not as successful a video as my solve of Racetrack. So here I am trying to make up for that by solving a different Michael Lefkowitz, aka Juggler, puzzle, Going Dutch, which I think on paper might actually be slightly harder than the puzzle that went wrong. And I'm also very tired. I'm recording this quite late on in the day, so we'll see how this goes. Your patience will be much appreciated. Or if not, then you are welcome to tamper with the YouTube playback speed. Anyway, let's have a look at this puzzle. I don't want to waffle along with too much introduction. We'll work on production value of these videos more as we go along, but for now, let's just solve the puzzle. This is Going Dutch. The rules are as follows. Latin square. Place the digits 1 to 8 once each in every row and column. Dutch neighbours. Cells sharing an edge are Dutch neighbours when they differ by 4 or more. Every cell has exactly 2 Dutch neighbours. And flag, the flag shows the difference between the sums of the indicated diagonals. I believe that's all the rules, and I believe we're still recording. So, let's reset the timer and try and solve this. Right, well, this is classic juggler minimalism, isn't it? Classic juggler minimalism. This is, well, it's actually quite scary, to be honest, because this really has the look of a puzzle where you have to think about it for 20, 30 minutes, try and understand the patterns, try and understand the kind of global implications, and then at some point we'll have a breakthrough, we'll prove something conclusively must be correct in terms of like a pattern, and then we'll just fill in the pattern and the puzzle will be done. So hopefully 20 or 30 minutes of me staring blankly at the grid and thinking will be good content. I'll try my best to make it watchable content for you. Yeah, so what have we got? We've got cells sharing an edge. Yeah, so any cell has got to have exactly 2 digits that are at least 4 different from it. Well, the corners are interesting then, aren't they? Yeah, the corners are interesting because if they have exactly 2 Dutch neighbours, that is just saying that for this cell, let me just triple check that. Yeah, cool. You can see which cell I'm highlighting. It still surprises me that I'm competent enough to make this record properly. This cell, yeah, it's just saying that these two are at least 4 apart from this one. Now, because this is an 8x8 Sudoku, Dutch neighbours are actually quite useful beasts. What do I mean by that? Well, in a 9x9 Sudoku, we have a thing called Dutch whispers lines. I'm very aware that it's very likely that every single person watching this video has heard of Dutch whispers lines, but I would love to know if you are new to variant Sudoku, if I am your first exposure to variant Sudoku, and I mean, if this puzzle is your first exposure to variant Sudoku, that would be great. I would love to hear from you in the comments. I will do my best to try and explain every step. So yes, there is a line type, quite a common line type, called a Dutch whisper line, which is basically this. It's adjacent digits along the line must have a difference of at least 4, and in a 9x9 Sudoku, when you have the digits 1 to 9, that's not entirely helpful, because most of the time you're going to go from a lowish digit to a highish digit. So like if you've got a 2, the next digit is going to be, I don't know, at least 6 apart from 2, so it's not going to go lower than 2, it's going to go to something like a 7, then it might pop down to a 3, and then it could go up to an 8. These are all at least 4 different from each other. Then it could go all the way down to a 1. But when it goes down to a 1, we've gone up, down, up, down. We could go up and then up again here. And that's where things get quite complicated if we're in a 9x9 Sudoku. Thankfully, Juggler is kind, and he's given us just an 8x8 grid to deal with today, which means that 9 isn't available, so there isn't like a string of 3 digits that are kind of 4 apart from each other. So actually, for digits to be at least 4 apart from each other, we do have to be alternating between high digits and low digits at all times. So what that means is that this cell just here, we don't know if it's a low digit or a high digit, but let's call it a yellow digit. And yellow might represent low, it might represent high, we don't know. Well, because this needs 2 digits that are at least 4 apart from it, these 2 cannot be yellow digits. You know, if this is a 1, 2, 3, or 4, these 2 must be a 5, 6, 7, or 8 set. Or if this yellow is 5, 6, 7, or 8, then these must both be from 1, 2, 3, or 4. And that is probably about where a lot of people get stuck on this puzzle, because I have no idea what to do next. I don't know, maybe I'm underestimating a lot of people by making that claim. I've also been talking a lot more than I've been thinking, which I think is a very difficult balance, and one that I'll try and get used to a little bit more as I work on my YouTube presentation skills. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, just because... Right. Okay. I was going to say something, but it's actually wrong. I'll say it anyway. So just because having a high digit and a low digit is the only way of creating a difference of at least 4, it doesn't necessarily mean that every high digit and every low digit will have a difference of at least 4, because we're defining like the digit 3 as a so-called low digit, and we're defining the digit 6, for example, as a so-called high digit, but they don't have a difference of at least 4. So I then thought, well, what if we just checkerboard the entire grid? And we say that, like for this cell, for example, this could be a 6, and yes, those 2 could be at least 4 apart from 6, by being a 1 or a 2, but these 2 could be less than 4 apart from 6 by being a 3 or a 4. But the problem is, when you checkerboard the grid like that, if we did it all the way, then at some point there will be a pink 1, for example, or an 8, if this was, a high set of digits. And at this point, all of these, by being from 5, 6, 7, and 8, will definitely be at least 4 apart. Yeah, so checkerboarding won't work. I've got 2 other vague ideas of like roughly how this grid will look. The problem is I don't really know how to, even if we prove that something can work, I don't really know how to go about proving that it's the only thing that will work. So what I'm thinking is we could have all of the columns just being consecutive digits like this. Whoops. Oh, I really need to turn the deep doot off, because if you are new, you'll have no idea what that's talking about, and honestly, rightly so. Right, yes, I was thinking something like this. We could do that, and then we could go to... I mean, I'm already seeing that this isn't really working. My idea was that in either the rows or the columns, we just have consecutive sets, and those will be the digits that definitely aren't differing by 4 or more, except, yeah, this kind of break in the pattern where it loops back round from 8 to 1 will differ by 4 or more. But yeah, no, this is nonsense anyway, because this 7 is just really broken. It differs by 4 or more with that 3. Nah, this is... I don't think this is going to work at all. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's it. My only other thought is, what if we have kind of double diagonal stripes? It's not just a checkerboard, but we have like double diagonal stripes of pink and yellow. So it might be something like this. Oh no, that won't work in the corner. Right, hold on. We did actually get this. Right, let's stick with this for now, because that's definitely correct. Oh, see, I was going to say kind of double diagonal stripes, and this would work really nicely for like the middle digits. Yeah, this looks great for like this digit, for example, where it's not going to be at least 4 apart from its kind of pink friends, but it will at least have the possibility of being at least 4 apart from its from the yellow cells. And this pattern works brilliantly for any cell in this 6x6 area, but the perimeters become a problem, don't they? Well, it's not a problem for this cell, because that could have a difference of at least 4 with those 2 digits. Maybe I am thinking too conceptually about this. But then again, it is listed on Logic Masters with a 3-star difficulty rating. So, I mean, my instinct is that once you've got the pattern, it's just going to be a filling in exercise, and it'll be really, really easy. So that does, if that theory is correct, then the kind of deep conceptual thinking about this theory will take about 3 stars worth of time. So I don't know, maybe we do carry on thinking conceptually. But yeah, this pattern won't work either because of cells like this one, which borders 2 other yellow cells and only 1 other pink cell. So the perimeter doesn't work. Okay. Well, I don't know then. So this is definitely correct. I mean, we don't even know anything about pink or yellow. So saying that that's correct doesn't really mean anything. I am aware that for the first 10 minutes or so of solving this puzzle, I've completely ignored this clue. But I just really can't see how that could possibly be the break-in. It seems so much more like a disambiguator to me, because we just know so little about these cells. We don't know if they're high or low. Well, I suppose we know that these are opposite. Maybe we need to keep them opposite every time? Maybe that... No, I don't really like that as an idea. This really was an odd choice to to make into a YouTube video, wasn't it? Right, let's suggest. Let's try things. Let's try making this cell pink, because I can see that does some things. It means that to satisfy this pink, it needs to be surrounded by 2 yellows. at least. So we'd need to make that yellow. This needs to be surrounded by 2 yellows at least. So those both become yellow. That becomes yellow because that needs to be surrounded by 2 yellows. Now this one needs to be surrounded by 2 pinks, and the only way we can achieve that is with a pink just here. Surely we're not just going to get a kind of L-shaped striped pattern, are we? I mean, that's believable. I don't immediately know how to disprove that. Apologies if you just heard a notification sound. You probably didn't. Let me just make sure that doesn't happen again. Right. Okay. Yeah, if I understand how audio capture works and the strength of my microphone, you shouldn't have heard it. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. Yeah, so this would be a pink. We'd need a pink here. Yeah, I mean, it does feel very likely that we're just going to be alternating around the perimeter. And the L shapes, I quite like the L shapes as an idea. That does at least have the feeling of feeling right. Oh no, hold on. No, I'm talking nonsense. Right, we could have L shapes out to here. What about the next L shape? Well, the next L shape is going to be that. But we're defining yellow either as 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, 6, 7, or 8. Those are groups of 4 digits. And here we've shaded 5 cells. So that doesn't work. So we can't have a complete checkerboard. We can't have L shapes. Is there any problem with making this one yellow? Well, no, that takes all the pressure off because these might be yellow, but they might not be. I have a horrible feeling I'm going to have to stop recording this video and admit defeat on this as well. Oh no. Go on. Let's give it a little bit longer. It's definitely the kind of puzzle where you, at some point, you just get it, and it's just a case of how long until that point, and how well can you entertain your YouTube audience until that point. It's been what, 16 minutes or so of actual solving. I feel like we need to just experiment with numbers. For example, okay, let's get rid of this. This is like for our very, very loose definitions of pink and yellow. This is at least an accurate pencil mark or shading. What happens if we make this yellow and those two pink? Because by kind of parity, at some point in this column, we will have either 2 pinks next to each other or 2 yellows. No, it would have to be 2 pinks next to each other. So let's say those pinks go in those places. Well, then that has to be a yellow to satisfy this one. Those two have to be yellows to satisfy this one, to make sure it's got at least 2 yellows bordering it. And that's fine, I think. I don't really see an issue with that. That one's happy now. how do we go through all of the options and leave only one correct option left? That's the problem. It's like, it's not even about trying to find the answer, it's about trying to find the right strategy of finding the answer. That's where the problem is. And that's what I'm struggling to find. So, I mean, is that a good question to ask? Can that be yellow? I'm not sure it is. I mean, is there any use in considering these diagonals? Right. Okay, well, let's actually start over here. Well, I suppose these are on the diagonals as well, but it's a bit more obvious that these are on the diagonals. Yeah, I mean, I can see that if we did not a full checkerboard pattern, but a checkerboard pattern in these two diagonals, then this would be horrendously broken. Oh, maybe this is a bit more powerful than I'm giving it credit for. Because these two... No. If these are Dutch neighbours... Well, okay, well, look, this is impossible. This is completely impossible, because the best we could do here would be... Oh no, it's not impossible. They could all be 4s. That's 8 4s, which is 32. These could all be 5s. You know, if this is not... Oh, okay, that couldn't be 4 or 5, but maybe this one could be an 8. And this one could be an 8. To satisfy these corner digits. Okay. Well, at that point, 5 times 7 is 35. But actually, we're making this an 8, so we're adding an extra 3, and we're adding an extra 3 here. And that just breaks. But only just. You know, if... what I'm suggesting is these two... This is not one of the 2 Dutch dominoes that these two need. And neither is this, and neither is this, neither is this. Whoops. Neither is this. Neither is this. So this checkerboard pattern works, and we've got a difference. Oh, hold on. Well, let's actually make this an 8 and a 4, and an 8 and a 4, because we do know that the corner digits need both of its neighbours to be in a Dutch neighbour relationship. But yeah, and this just doesn't work, because 5 times 5 is 25, plus 2 times 8, which is 16, that's 41, and 8 times 4. So this is the best we can do if everything on this diagonal is one colour and everything on this diagonal is the other colour. This is the closest we can get the 2 diagonals, and that would be a difference of 9, and 9 is not a valid digit in this Sudoku. But, like, where's the pressure? Because at some point, can't we just reverse it? And just make this the pink diagonal? And this the yellow diagonal? And now we're just taking off all the pressure. Because now, these being from the higher set, kind of balances out the, what we've done over there. So we can approximately balance it out and get anything, as low as 1 here. Probably. Okay. Yeah, I just don't feel like it's the diagonal. I don't feel like that's what's under pressure. Not yet. I feel like we need to work out the pattern first. It just feels like one of those puzzles that has 8 solutions, which is really just one solution, but you can rotate it, you can reverse it, or maybe 16 solutions, because you could swap all the high digits and the low digits, although that might actually just be one of the reflections or rotations. of the original answer that you've got. So something like 8 or 16 solutions, and then Juggler has just said, okay, the real puzzle is finding the pattern and finding what those 8 or 16 solutions are. But just so that you've got something to fill in the grid, so that you get to fill in the grid and click tick at the end, and it comes up and tells you that you've got the right answer. Here's my way of disambiguating those 8 or 16 solutions. This is what I'm going to do. This gives one unique result, and this just proves that you did find the pattern. The pattern, of course, being the real puzzle. That's what it feels like. So I don't think this diagonal is going to do anything. I think we just need to think harder about the pattern. And I realise it's been 23 minutes, and I don't even feel like I've thought that hard about the pattern yet. I've come up with some ideas, but I've not really honed in on anything like a sensible strategy for finding out what the pattern will be. Right. And I'm still putting much more brain power into talking than solving. And I'm not striking that balance very well. Okay, right. Let's think. Middly digits. Let's focus on middly digits. And by middly digits, I mean 4s and 5s. Oh, hold on. Is this it? Was this it all along? Oh, it might have been, Oh, right, sorry. I went quiet for a bit there because I was actually using some brain. Right, I'm just going to place a 4 somewhere. Deary me. Okay, it's taken me 24 minutes, but this is the best I felt about one of my ideas. Right, we are obviously going to have to place 8 4s in the grid. No, I'm still not quite visualising how it's going to end up, but yeah, hear me out, right? Even though I keep pausing to think more. Right, let's say this is one of our 4s. It needs 2 of its neighbours to be 8s, because there is only one digit that can go next to a 4, and that digit is 8. Sorry, in order to satisfy the Dutch neighbour requirement. So let's say the 8s go in these places. But now... Sorry, I should really be honest about what I'm thinking right now. What I'm thinking right now is that I'm starting to have a vague recollection of seeing somebody else solve this. Don't worry, it's very vague. If it was not very vague, trust me, I would have, got, I would have tried my best to act out arriving at the solution much quicker than 26 minutes into the solve. So I really don't remember very much about it, but this is starting to ring a bit of a bell. So right, so we have used up 2 of our 8 8s just to satisfy this single 4. Yeah, right. So obviously we can't continue doing that. We can't just have 2 8s for every 4 in the grid. Something like that. I mean, they don't always have to be north and east of the 4, but we can't do that. That's not sustainable because we've not got enough 8s left. Here we've used 6 8s, but we've still got 5 more 4s left to satisfy. So what we're going to have to do is make sure that each 8 is doing kind of double duty by touching. Well, each 8 needs to be touching an average of 2 4s. Yeah, this is it. Each 8 must be touching an average of 2 4s in order to satisfy the 4s. So every 4 must be touching at least 2 8s. But it can only be 2 8s, can't it? Because we can't, once we've put an 8 to the north and the east of the 4, we can't put an 8 in either of these by Latin square rules. Okay. See, actually, I'm starting to change my mind about whether this is a suitable puzzle for a video, because I've just realised I could put a timestamp in the description and just say, this is where I get it. It's not like with other puzzles where you're slowly working your way through, and to experience the whole puzzle, you kind of need to watch the YouTuber struggle through every single deduction. Here, I could just put a timestamp, whatever it was, 25 minutes into the solve, saying skip to here if you want to. Skip past me being stuck for 25 minutes. Anyway, right. So yes, there is a 4 here. It requires at least 2 8s. Well, no, exactly 2 8s around it, and it can't have any more. So every 4 must have exactly 2 8s around it. Every 8, therefore, must average 2 4s in order to accommodate all of the 4s in the grid. The total number of connections between a 4 and an 8 in the grid is 16, because there will be 8 4s, and each of them will have 2 connections with an 8. So there are 16 connections between 4s and 8s in this grid, which means that every 8 must be averaging 2 connections to 4s. I think I'm reiterating the same point over and over again here, but I just want to be very, very careful about how I word this. So, right, so I can see 2 ways this might work. One way is that we could just create these kind of 8 4 squares. We can put one there, we could put another one, let's say 8's there, 4's there. We could put another one over here. I don't think I've actually created enough space for this to work, because now our last 8's and 4's in the grid will be going over here, and they won't be next to each other. But you get the idea. We could create these kind of squares, or could we do something like this where we get an 8? See, I don't think this is going to work. 8 4 8 4, like a staircase situation. Yeah, I can already see this is not going to work, because whilst all of these 4s are satisfied, we've now used all 8 8s. This 8, however, whilst every 4 has 2 connections to 8s, not every 8 has 2 connections to 4s. The final 4 in the grid would actually just go here by Latin square. And so this 8 and this 8 only connect to one 4, and this 4 doesn't connect to any 8. So this is a problem. So, right, I think what we're establishing, therefore, is that we have 4 2x2 squares that will look something like this. And in those squares, the 8s will be satisfied. Yeah, I'm going to be honest, this is definitely now ringing a bell, but yeah, it was easily long enough ago that I had to come up with this idea myself. Yeah, I may have watched someone do it before, but to be honest, and I probably shouldn't admit this when I'm trying to become a puzzle YouTuber myself, I don't always pay an enormous amount of attention to every single detail of every single logical step. Sometimes I do when I'm watching other people solve things on YouTube. Sometimes I just kind of get vibes and kind of appreciate the puzzle based on its vibes, if I don't really have the time or energy to go into depth. Anyway, so we've got these 2x2 squares, and that's making me think that we're eventually going to get 2x2 squares of 3s and 7s, 2x2 squares of 2s and 6s, and 2 by 2 squares of 1s and 5s. We can certainly say all of that about 1s and 5s, because all of that logic is completely symmetrical around based on 5s. All of that logic we did about 4s requiring 2 8s, and therefore, we did some logical deductions and said that 8s must average exactly 2 connections with 4s. And yeah, right, and the point is that you can't have any more than 2 connections with 4s, so every 8 must have exactly 2 connections with 4s. That whole average thing, I mean, it's a true statement, but you can't have 3 connections with 4s, because then we'd get a clash in a column or a row. But all of that logic is just completely symmetrical if we had just asked about 5s and started thinking about how they need 1s around them. So we're going to get this kind of pattern with 1s and 5s as well. And then the 2s and the 6s. Right, yeah, because now the 1s, even though they could connect with 6s, 7s or 8s, they can't anymore, because every single one has a Dutch neighbour, well, it has 2 Dutch neighbours of 2 5s. So the 1s can't possibly have any more Dutch neighbours. So then we think about 6s, and even though 6 could, in theory, have 1 or 2 as a potential Dutch neighbour, as its potential Dutch neighbours, 1 is no longer an option, because all of the 1s are occupied neighbouring the 5s. Right, yes. So we are just going to fill in our grid with Battenberg cakes of to be clear, all of that logic to do with 2s and 6s is kind of symmetrical with 3s and 7s, because 3s can't join up with 8s anymore, so they must all join up with 7s, and therefore all 7s must join up with 3s. So yes, we're just going to have loads of Battenbergs. And that's it, really. That's the pattern. We've found the pattern. It did take us a little bit too long, and then 10 minutes to then explain it and kind of confirm it. But we have found that pattern. My question now is, how do we do the disambiguation? Because this is certainly not just going to be a case of filling in the grid. Is it? So those 2 digits will be the same, because that will be a Battenberg. Should we even just delineate the Battenbergs? Oh, I'm so glad I'm a puzzle YouTuber. I get to say things like, shall we delineate the Battenbergs? Right. And I think I actually will use yellow and pink, because I've thought of something else. Let's go to our original square, shall we? We called this yellow and those 2 pink. Well, now we know, because of the Battenberg pattern that we've decided must be true, that must be yellow. But now I think these have to be yellow as well. Is that right? So let's just take an example. Let's say this is our 5. No, 1s and 5s. Right, those don't have to be yellow. But they do. Okay, so looking at the 5, they don't have to be yellow, because they could be pink. They could just be 6s. Hold on. 6 isn't pink. Sorry, I was looking at that and thinking, hold on, something's gone wrong here. Right, they could be 2s. Ignore what I said about 6s. They could be 2s, and that 5 is satisfied, and that's wonderful. Because 2 is not at least 4 away from 5, but 1 is. So that 5 has exactly 2 Dutch neighbours. The 5 is happy. But now, we said that wherever there's a 2, there's a Battenberg with 6s. But we have a problem now, because 6 is at least 4 away from 1. So, right, that's weird. So and this wouldn't work even if we made this 3. In fact, we're making the problem worse if this is 3, because 3 goes in a Battenberg with 7. And 7 and 1 are definitely at least 4 apart from each other. So I think it's true to say that if we continue the Battenberg pattern, so, we make this yellow and then make this pink, it feels right to say that this difference and this difference sum to 8. So they will always have more differences of at least 4. That's right, isn't it? So if that's x and x plus 4, and that's y and y plus 4, if I was better at algebra in my head, I would be able to do a better job of proving this. But yeah, no, let's define this as x, this as y. So x and x plus 4, and y minus 4. So the difference between x and y, let's call the difference d. But the difference between x plus 4 and y minus 4 is going to be d plus 8. Yeah, that's how the algebra works out. D plus 8. So d could be positive or negative. We could say that, but d has to be, because the Dutch neighbours are satisfied within the 2x2 Battenbergs. D has to be in a range from -3 to +3 in terms of the difference between those two. We must make the difference somewhere between -3 and +3. But when you add 8 to any of those numbers, even when you add 8 to -3, you're still getting up to, well, let's say this. You're still getting up to +5. So even if that difference is -3, the other difference will always be +5 or more. So yeah, okay, all right, there we go. I think I'm satisfied. Yeah, what I want to try and avoid in these videos, and it will be very, very difficult to do this sometimes. I want to avoid solving puzzles on vibes. And it was a strong vibe that this was going to end up being yellow. But now I think I've proven it conclusively. And that pattern continues all the way around. So that actually has to be yellow. In fact, yeah, so when we have a border, they must be the same. And that's going to be yellow. And I can see what that's going to do, because now we can fill in our Battenberg patterns in here and make those yellow. But now these yellows need yellow neighbours across the thick black lines. And the pinks need pink neighbours across the thick black lines. In fact, we can actually complete our Battenberg patterns for the ones that we've kind of started by putting yellows in. Right, so yeah, I can see what that's going to do. It's going to create these kind of 2x2 yellows around across of the thick black lines, and same with pinks. Okay, 2x2 yellow, and then kind of, it's almost like a toroidal 2x2, this one and this one. If the grid was a torus and kind of wrapped around itself, that would form a yellow 2x2. And we get other kind of toroidal 2x2s as well. Right, so there's our pattern. Right, okay, so now we know that these are all the same high or lowness. Okay. So but these are not. So because there's more of these yellow ones, I mean, surely yellow can't be high now, because if yellow is high, the best we could do here would be like 5 5 5 5 5 5. That's 40. 8 times 5 is 40. And yet those even if we maximize these at all of those being 8 and all of these, well, no, but we know what those are going to be. We know. We don't know what this digit's going to be. But if it was a 6, this would be a 2. So we know that the difference between these two is always 4. So actually, the difference between those two is 4. The difference between those two is 4 in the same direction. So we're now at a difference of 8. We're now at a difference of 12. We're now at a difference of 16. So somehow the other ones have to kind of balance out that difference. So if yellow is high, yellow is greater. The red diagonal is greater than the blue diagonal by 16 based on our current digits. So to make sure that this digit is a maximum of 8, well, let's just kind of mark these. Hold on. That is a difference of 16. And if that difference of 16 is in favour of the red diagonal, because, you know, in the universe where yellow is the high digits, then those 4 yellow digits will add even more to that 16. You know, even if we minimise that at 4 5s, you know, if yellow is the high digits, the minimum that those 4 highlighted cells could be would be 4 5s, which is another 20, so that's 36. So we somehow need to get these 3 yellows to kind of redress the balance enough to make sure that that digit is at most 8. But even if we made all 3 of these 8, that's 24. Take that away from our 36. Yeah, it's not going to work, because that gives us 12. We've still got 12, a minimum of 12, 12's worth of kind of imbalance in favour of the red diagonal, the red arrow diagonal. So this doesn't work. So yellow is actually going to be low, which I'm going to mark as blue, and pink will be high, which I'm going to mark as orange. Right, so now we actually know that these 4 red lines represent a difference of 16 in favour of the blue diagonal. So now we actually need, well, these can be a minimum of 4 1s, which is 20, and these, oh, it's perfect. Oh, it's perfect. Of course it's perfect. It's juggler. And 3/4 of an hour into this video, we're realising that. Oh, I must make this video less than an hour, actually. I feel like a video is much more clickable if it's under an hour. So let's do that. How are we doing at the moment? 47 minutes. Okay, right. I know we've not entered a single digit yet, but we can do this. If these are minimised at 4 1s, then we're... Oh, no, sorry. No, it's the wrong way round. I've got it the wrong way round. Because the difference is in favour of the blue diagonal this time, isn't it? So actually it's this diagonal we need to minimise. Let's say that's 3 1s. That's boosting the difference kind of in favour of blue up to 19. So if we minimise these at 3 1s, then we get to 19. Blue being 19 bigger than red, and that's before we've taken these 4 into account. But when we take these 4 into account, if we maximise those as 4s, we're taking away 16. Hold on, this isn't nearly as precious as I thought it was. We're taking away 16 from our difference. So we're now only at 3. Oh no, but this digit itself must be a low digit. Oh, that's gorgeous. Right, okay, so we don't need to worry about this being a maximum of 8. We need to worry about it being a maximum of 4, because this is itself a low digit. Oh, this is gorgeous. So, we decided... Do we need to recap all of that? Maybe we don't. Yeah, let's just very quickly do it. These red lines represent exactly a difference of 16 in favour of the blue diagonal. If we minimise these 3, we get to an extra 3 in favour of the blue diagonal, so we're on 19 in favour of the blue diagonal. And then by maximising these at 4, 4, 4 and 4, we take 16 away from that difference, so 19 minus 16 is 3, so we get the opportunity to write a 3 into here. But given that this is a low digit, it has to be a maximum of 4, so it's a minimum of 3, a maximum of 4. We've got 1 degree of freedom, but the problem is, if we take that degree of freedom and make this a 4, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. If we make this a 4, then we're preventing this Battenberg from being a pair of 4s, and this Battenberg from being a pair of 4s. So we're actually taking away 2 degrees of freedom. Because, in order to... I think I've explained it well enough. We need to basically maximise this at 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, but with 1 degree of freedom. So we could reduce 1 pair of them to a pair of 3s. But by making this a 4, which allows us that degree of freedom in the first place, we are forcing both of those to go down to pairs of 3s in our Battenberg shape, and that takes 2 degrees of freedom. Oh man, I have a newfound respect for anyone who tries to explain these weird, complicated concepts to a YouTube audience. It's hard, but I think I've at least done quite a good job of at least finding the answer, and hopefully being quite thorough in my explanation, but not so thorough that we go over the hour mark. Anyway, so what we've just concluded is that we can't take that degree of freedom by making this cell a 4. We must make it a 3, which gives us no degrees of freedom. So these actually are all 4. These are all 8. These are all 1s. And by kind of... they go on a Battenberg with 5s. The 3s go on a Battenberg with 7s. And now by... it's almost become a 4x4 Sudoku, not an 8x8 Sudoku. So, this... sorry, Latin square. The 1-5 Battenberg only has 1 place to go in column 1 of the Battenbergs and row 1 of the Battenbergs, which is over here. So those are both 5, those are both 1s. And by Battenberg Sudoku, we get the 2-6 Battenberg in row 1, column 3, I'm going to call it, even though it's blatantly not. Right, we can complete column 2 of the Battenberg 4x4 puzzle. We can complete row 2 of the Battenbergs, we can complete column 1, we can complete row 3, and then we can complete row 4, and that should be the puzzle. It is. That is weird. That is really, really, really weird, and but so satisfying once you understand it. I am disappointed that it took me about 25 minutes to actually consider any digits. I suppose I was kind of assuming this is going to be the kind of puzzle that's just some weird, deep, conceptual pattern that you need to recognise, and you don't actually consider any digits until way down the line. And that's what I was trying to follow. I was also spending way too much brain power on just continuing the commentary, despite not knowing what to do, and not nearly enough brain power on actually solving. However, once we honed in on the idea, I think I did a really good job of proving without ambiguity that this had to be the only solution. I think it would have been very easy once I kind of got the gist of what was going on with these Battenberg patterns. It would have been very easy just to say, yeah, that's probably what it's going to be. Let's just fill in the grid. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with how thoroughly we disproved every other option. Yeah. Well, it's not. It wasn't about disproving other options. It was proving the pattern. Yeah, it was. It was a weird pattern to discover, but I really loved it. I must make my outros much shorter next time. Yes, thank you very much. Apologies that it was slightly impure because I think I recollect. I remember watching somebody else solve this. But yeah, it was a very, very distant memory. I am not nearly clear enough to use it at all. So, yeah, good. Right, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. I enjoyed that. Let's end the video before we get to an hour. And hopefully, all being well, I will see you again next Wednesday for another puzzle. We'll find out what that one is. Good. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all the usual stuff. Bye for now.